For quite a few weeks now, we've been talking about leasing, renting, building, buying houses, the visa situation, the laws regarding what you can and can't do here in Bali. And a mate of mine is in the middle of a construction. Now he's halfway through he's 6 months in on a project that's quite substantial. He's got a house here that's half built. They're sort of going through the finishing on interiors with the ceramic tiles or the granite tiles. It's a huge house, 3 bedrooms with self-contained facilities, and it's up in the middle of the mountains, not far from Mount Agung, further up the coast from Denpasar up past Chandidasa to a place called Amlampura. And there's lots of famous features up here, including the giant big Mount Agung, which is just over the top of those trees. There's the water temple, the water palace, Ganga. There's a couple of palaces up here. There's also the Lempuyang temple, the giant temple everyone does the big selfies at, with the big gates of heaven opening up in the mountain in the background. And he's built this massive house on his own land. Now he's got a huge amount of land that sort of follows the hill and right around. His uncle's got the property down below, but he sort of comes right on here. And this is the size of the house. Now, it does look a little bit like a Pizza Hut, but it's bloody massive, and I'm really impressed how big. So I'm going to take you inside and show you how big it is. There's looking down the edge. There's his wood store and all of his supplies, the tiles, the bricks. You can see they're mixing the cement the old-fashioned way. Everything here is done by hand. There's almost no power tools, and they just sit there with buckets and chisels and do everything as they go. So fascinating. I'm just blown away. Now I'm going to show you this house. It's got this absolutely beautiful ceiling that was in place already, and he's married the old with the new. So he's got a giant big lounge room here with big opening windows here, so they've got natural airflow. You've got, I just love that ceiling. Tiles on the outside. 1 bedroom there with an ensuite. Another bedroom there with an ensuite. 3rd bedroom here. Hello. It's beautiful. Plenty of room. There's a water storage tank there. Plenty of airflow around the back as well, so they will keep the place cool. But he's also got air conditioning points in wherever they need it, so they can individually cool the place down. Another room here. Place is big. This is about the size of our lounge room at home, which is a pretty decent sized lounge room. All the doors he's had custom made. And all the materials, granite tiles, beautifully laid. It's been 6 months in the construction process so far, and he's bought all the materials he needs, all his wood and all his tiles. It's been purchased already. There's the roof tiles. So the big question is, to build something on this size, which is huge, how much? You ready for this? 600 million. That's $60,000 for this. I'm flabbergasted. Man, this is what building in Bali is like. You got a beautiful hit to build. Retaining walls, and they've had to do a heap of structural stuff to get it to this point. Half a dozen builders here on a contract, so they're fixed price. Now this is out in the middle of nowhere. There's our little temple there. Now I don't want to tell him, but the roof does look like it's a Pizza Hut. And there's the view, and he's planning to build a big swimming pool up the end. And some more structures. $60,000 in the old Aussie dollars. If you wanted to buy or build or lease in Bali, that blows you out. Now look, he's a local. I'm sure he's got a bloody good price by his builders, and I'm sure there's a million less hassles for him because he's been doing this for a while than you or I would ever contemplate. So what I'm saying is, if a white guy came, say like me, and decided to build a property, I don't think I'd get it for the same price, and I don't think it'd be as hassle-free, just because of communication issues, and he's remotely. Chandy Das is way over there. Mautagung's just up the top there behind these trees. We're sort of up at the back of Amlapura, which is north of Chandy Dasa, in the mountains, in the hills, in a farming area. So you would almost have to be here. Even he comes up every week just to check on the progress and the construction, make sure there's any decisions to be made, and actually literally come up and do a little blessing every time he comes here, just to make sure that everything progresses the right way. But that's what 60 grand gets you, and that's finished. That's basically his finished contract price. So that's a bloody nice size house, with beautiful finishing on it, for 60k. I know Katut did a 2-story smaller house than that, probably half the footprint of the house, but in 2 stories, and he paid about 70, and that was beautifully done. So it is possible to come over here and buy a bit of land and build something, or lease land. A lot of people will lease it for 20 or 30 years, and at the end of that, the house either reverts back to the original owners and they get to keep the house, or you renegotiate. And I don't think there'd be anything about renegotiating through the lease in the middle of it. But the interesting thing is, if you've got a property and you're leasing it, and the owners of the property sell or die or anything happens to them, you still have the right to that property no matter what happens to the end of your lease. So if something happens and you pass away, or you need to move and go back to Australia, you can either will that land to your own children or to whoever you want, obviously, or you can sell your remaining part of the lease. So that's what a lot of people do. They'll come over, maybe the cheapest way to get a lease over here is to go for something like 20 years. You pay up front for it, so if it's 10,000 bucks a year, you're up for a lot of money. But halfway through that lease, if you say, you know what, I've had enough, or my circumstances have changed, I need to move to somewhere else, I need to go home, I've got medical problems, whatever, then you can put someone else in. You can sell your remaining part of the lease to anyone you want, and as long as that gets properly authorised through the notaris and through the right channels, it's 100% legal. So you've actually paid up front for the right to use that land for 20 years or whatever the lease terms are. And it's yours for that duration. So if you build a property on that, then it's your house. You can do anything you want depending on the terms and conditions of the original lease. And you can end up with something just stunning for absolute fraction of what it would cost to rent one already. So people talk about, we've been doing a couple of videos lately about the cost of leasing property and the cost of leasing villas and stuff like that. Well, here's a beautiful house. Okay, it's not quite the villa style with the individual cubicles, but it could easily be. He's got more than enough room here. He could build anything he wants around here, put a big swimming pool in. You could make this into a very typical Bali sort of villa style house like Dazza lives in. Now, you could lease that land in theory, depending on where it was going to be located, but you could probably lease that land for about $1,000 Australian per 10 square metres, per 100 metres. And this would have to be, geez, it'd be more than 5 are here, 500 square metres. But that house area alone would be, say, a couple. So that would be $2,000 a year for 10 years would be 20 grand. So say 40 grand, double it. Get twice the land, or get it a little bit closer to where you want to go, to a little bit more localized area. For 20 or 30 or 40 grand, you could lease the land for 20 years. For another 50 or 60 grand, you could build a house. And then for another 5 or 10 grand, you'll build a swimming pool as well. So you could have, for $100,000, give or take, 20 years of your life living in luxury at your own design, made for you, whether you want fully self-contained rooms, whether you want to be able to lease it out or have other people come and stay without interfering with you. You'd have to look into the rules of things like Airbnb. I know there's a lot of people doing that now over here. I also heard that they're sort of clamping down a bit, because to do that and run a business through a villa, you have to go through the local tax laws and you have to be registered, and there's a bit of a different process. And again, that's where your consultant comes in. That's where you get legal representation to say, in order to do this, that's what you have to do. Because if your ultimate goal would be to build something and rent it out, or even take on homestays or something, then there's a different set of rules and some tax laws and stuff that I've got no idea about. But I do know Frank and Monica, so I'd be on the phone to them and say, right, this is what I want to do, this is what I like to do, what's the best way to structure it from the beginning, so that we can be in the right place when we need to. And that might have something to do with builder's licensing and stuff like that. Look, a lot of people say, oh, it's too expensive, blah, blah, blah. You know what, it's not cheap. It's not as cheap as it was. The reason it's not as cheap as it was is because people have realised that it was cheap, and they've gone, geez, I'm going to jump into that. But where in the world are you going to find a place for $100,000 with a swimming pool, 3 bedrooms, and a kitchen in a banana plantation in a paradise where it never gets below about 15 degrees? You've got the beach not far down the road. You've got almost anything you want, and depending on where you come from, Australia's only a couple of $300 away generally. If you can do a bit of advanced planning, you can get return tickets easily from here to Sydney for about $600 last time I looked. So it's not that bad. And if you do come over here and you're a long-term resident, you can get local health insurance, which is pretty good. I'm on it now. It's called a BPJS, and it's $15 a month in Australian money, 150k, and it's a pretty comprehensive, simple, like a Medicare insurance. But if you need anything urgently, you just turn up at the local clinic. They'll refer you to a hospital or to a specialist. Next minute, you're getting sorted out. Eyeglasses, dental, whatever you need. And it's at that more basic level. It's not sort of the premier care, but there's lots of ways to live comfortably over here. You don't have to spend $1 million. And if you only want to come over for 10 years while you're sort of early retirement and while you're still able to enjoy it, and then after 10 years you go, you know what, I want to head home, you can either on-sell your second 10 years, if you've got a 20-year lease, sell it to someone else, or you can rent it out potentially and go through the right books and make an income for the next 10 years while you're living back in Australia or something. So beautiful. I'm just stunned that huge house that he's got there has only cost him, or will only cost to completion, about 60 to 70,000 Australian dollars. Because I'd hate to think how much that would cost in Australia, but it certainly would be 2 or 3 times that. So very impressed. Love it.